This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Today, Albania confirms plans to create a new microstate. Germany's embattled Social Democrats hold off the far right in Brandenburg, and Donald Trump says this might be his last election run. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Monday, 23rd of September, 2024. The world may be on course for a brand new country after Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama confirmed plans to establish a Vatican-style Muslim sovereign state in Albania's capital Tirana, with the goal of promoting moderation, tolerance, and peaceful coexistence. Now, this story might come as a surprise and naturally raise a lot of questions. So let's go through the where, what, who, and why. The proposed country, which would be called the Sovereign State of the Bektashi Order, would be a quarter of the size of the Vatican City, thus making it the smallest country in the world. The roughly 27-acre new microstate would be located in Tirana, on the site of the existing headquarters of the Bektashi Order, which is an Islamic Sufi order that originated in the 13th century Ottoman Empire and is known for its moderate religious values. Bektashi Muslims, of which there are millions worldwide, make up 10% of Albania's Muslim population and 5% of the country's total population. Albania is roughly 50% Muslim, with the rest being Catholic and Orthodox Christians, plus other smaller communities. The head of the Bektashi order, known to followers as Baba Mondi, would lead the sovereign state, which would have its own administration, passports, and borders. Baba Mondi, who has long campaigned against extremism, says all decisions would be made with love and kindness. The planned state would allow alcohol, let women wear what they want, and impose no lifestyle rules, according to the New York Times. Baba Mondi said in an interview with an Albanian news outlet that, much like in the Vatican, citizenship for the new Bektashi state would be limited to members of the clergy and those directly involved in the administration of the state, because, quote, "Our focus is on spiritual governance, not the creation of a large, politically defined population." Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama, himself a non-practicing Roman Catholic, says the reasoning behind the plan is to promote a tolerant version of Islam that Albania prides itself on, saying we should take care of this treasure, which is religious tolerance and which we should never take for granted. Do not let the stigma of Muslims define who Muslims are. In a speech at the United Nations on Sunday, Rama confirmed the plans and hailed Albania's history of helping those in need, referring to the sheltering of Jews during World War II and more recently Afghans fleeing the Taliban. He added that Albania, quote, "gave the world its newest saint, Mother Teresa, and that her principles have been a source of inspiration in creating the Bektashi sovereign state as a new center of moderation, tolerance, and peaceful coexistence." The exact timeline and process for Albania to grant sovereignty to the Bektashi order remains unclear, and we'll have to wait and see how many other countries recognise the proposed new country. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel, like Adam Zacheval, then consider joining the TLDR daily membership program for just $1.99. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has earned a brief reprieve after his Social Democratic Party, SPD, won Sunday's election in the eastern state of Brandenburg, staving off the far right. Brandenburg, which surrounds Berlin, has historically been a stronghold for the SPD, who've governed it continuously since German reunification in 1990. Polls in the lead up to the election showed that the far-right Alternative for Deutschland, or AfD, stood a chance of winning the state. However, much to Scholz's relief, it seems voters rallied around his party, with the SPD coming first with 31% of the vote, up nearly 5 points. The AfD came second with 29% of the vote, up nearly 6 points. The new Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance, or BSW, came third with 14%, and the CDU came fourth with 12%. It was a pretty terrible night for the Greens, Left Party and the FDP, as they all fell below the 5% threshold, and so failed to win any seats. Conversely, this was a pretty great result for the SPD, and it's a lot better than the results we saw a few weeks ago in Saxony and Thuringia, where they scored in the single digits. We have a video coming out on the TLDR EU channel tomorrow, where we go into more detail on the Brandenburg results, so make sure to check that out. Donald Trump says he doesn't expect to run again for president in 2028 if he loses the presidential election this November.
If you're not successful this time, do you see yourself running again in 4 years? No, I don't. No, I don't. I think that will be it. I don't see that at all.
Trump has now been the Republican nominee 3 times in the past 8 years, making him the first 3-time Republican candidate since Nixon. In those 8 years, he has significantly reshaped the party in his own image. If he loses in November, there are no laws or rules preventing him from running again in 2028, since he has only served a single term as president. If he wins in November, he is constitutionally barred from seeking a 3rd term. Trump's comments are a rare acknowledgement of the possibility that he could in fact lose to Kamala Harris later this year. However, it marks the 2nd time in 4 days that he has raised the possibility of defeat. He invited criticism when he said last week, "If I don't win this election," and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy. Nevertheless, if Trump's suggestion that he won't run in 2028 comes true, it would leave an open field for a party that has been dominated by one man for the best part of a decade. Anura Dissanayake, an outsider neo-Marxist candidate, has officially been sworn in as the president of Sri Lanka in the country's first election since its economic meltdown and debt default 2 years ago. Dissanayake won Saturday's election, marking the first time his party has come to power. After starting out as a Marxist-Leninist party in 1965, the People's Liberation Front was involved in 2 armed uprisings against the Sri Lankan state in the 1970s and 80s. Dissanayake was appointed the party's leader in 2014 and has sought to reshape the party's image. Described as a vote against the traditional political elite, who have for decades taken turns ruling Sri Lanka, Dissanayake beat incumbent president Ranil Wickremesinghe, who took power in 2022 after the country defaulted on its foreign debt, and its leader, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, fled amid mass protests. Dissanayake also beat the main opposition leader, Sajith Premadasa, son of a former president, by riding an anti-establishment wave and pledging to root out dynastic corruption and slash the financial privileges of the ruling class. In his inaugural address to the country's 23 million people, about a quarter of whom are in poverty after 2 years of crisis and austerity, Dissanayake emphasised his commitment to addressing critical issues such as inflation, food security and unemployment, promising a fresh start. Dissanayake will continue implementing the conditions of the country's fragile IMF-backed debt restructuring agreement, but he has said he will alter some rigid conditions to grant more relief to Sri Lanka's citizens. In the final story today, we're going to briefly discuss what we're up to this week. You might have noticed last year that we were invited to the Labour Party conference in Liverpool and even had the opportunity to interview the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. Both Ben and Georgina are in Liverpool right now at this year's Labour conference, which is why I'm recording, and will be in Birmingham at the weekend at the Conservative Party conference. So, if you're at either event, feel free to say hello to them. Like last year, we're interviewing Rachel Reeves, now the Chancellor of the UK. So make sure you keep an eye out on the TLDR News UK channel and the TLDR podcast channel in the next week. What do the world's best politicians have in common? They're willing to learn something new every day. And if you think that sounds too hard or too time-consuming or just too overwhelming for you, then you haven't tried Brilliant.org. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. Like I said though, the real value here is that you can do this easily every day, truly committing to lifelong learning. Slowly, over time, you'll not only pick up new skills or get better at maths, but you also feel the satisfaction that comes with bettering yourself and staying ahead. For instance, if like many world leaders, you want to get better at handling finances, you might want to check out the ton of new data science content Brilliant has just released, all of which uses real-world data to train you to see trends and to make better informed decisions. They're perfect for learners of any level to start or continue learning data analysis, with a full suite of new content covering data visualizations, algorithms, regression models, and more. Plus, you can gain additional insight by working with real data sets from sources like Airbnb, Spotify, Starbucks, and more. To try everything Brilliant has to offer, free, for a full 30 days, click on the link in the description.